welcome to the Good Boy Podcast, the dog storytelling, discussion, interview, celebration show of our favorite four-legged friends, dogs. I'm your host, Ilya Alexeyev, and I'm joined with my brother Dima on a special episode. So this is, I say that a lot, but this is, by special episode, I mean this is a slightly unconventional episode in the sense that due to some scheduling things, I didn't get a chance to get anyone this month, but I wanted to record, so I am doing something different. So I thought of this idea a long time ago, but I was like, okay, if I can't get anyone, what can I do for an episode? And I just started thinking about dog things, and I started thinking about like dog movies, and I thought of Air Bud. So Air Bud is a movie that I loved as a kid, and so I decided I'd rewatch it and just discuss it, and I brought my brother along with me. Hey, Dima.
Hey.
You've been on a few times now, so welcome back. Alright, so like I said, I rewatched Air Bud a few days ago, and it had been probably, 15 years or something since I watched it all the way through, something like that.
So you watched it when you were 12?
Maybe, I don't know. I don't remember. Just throwing a guess. So I wrote notes throughout the movie. Some of them are just things that stuck out to me about the movie itself, so not really relevant to what we discuss on this show. But there were some good things that I liked from the movie. So, yeah, we'll just go into it. And you watched it a while ago?
I watched it probably like a year and a half ago.
Okay, so you were like, I don't know, I don't really remember, but like that's fine because I don't think most people have a like perfect memory of Air Bud.
Okay.
I mean, I know it is a classic film, but so Air Bud came out in 1997 for those keeping score, and it is actually a Disney film. So, you know, they just opened the Star Wars land, close it down, open Air Bud land, right?
Just a black top and a basketball hoop and a dog.
Yeah. Well, and then you can have an indoor basketball court where you have him actually playing. All right. So the movie starts. So this isn't really gonna be like, it's gonna be like partial commentary. Well, not like an actual commentary, but not really like a review, but just kind of like discussing things that happened and kind of some of the portrayal of Air Bud and dogs and probably like 90s movies stuff as well. So I hope you're down for the ride. Okay, so the movie starts. And, oh yeah, by the way, the dog is named Buddy. Buddy the dog is the dog in the movie, and he was on America's Funniest Home Videos because he basically did what he does in the movie where he tries to basically like catch the ball, but it's too big, so it basically like bounces off of him. So yeah, all right. So,
wait, hold on. Is this in real life or in the movie like canon?
No, this is real life. I'm on the Wikipedia page.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no.
So they made a movie about a home video.
Well, I think it's like this dog did something cool. Let's write like a movie about it.
Yeah.
And so it's like kind of extrapolating off of him. Okay, so the movie starts off and it's like this clown who goes to like birthday parties and he has his dog with him, and he does a bunch of boring stuff. He throws balls to the dog catches them. Just that kind of stuff. And then basically the dog gets all like whatever naughty and ruins the birthday party. You know, there's like the classic 90s thing where the clown's face goes into a cake, all that kind of stuff. And the clown threatens him going to the pound. And that's like the first thing I want to note is I feel like with a lot of like the 90s stuff, it was like, we're going to take you to the pound. I don't know. Did you, like, I feel like I can think of like Homeward Bound and just movies like that where it's like that was always like a threat, and it's like I don't feel like like I don't know, is that something like people actually do? Like,
I don't know.
like,
I've never met someone that's done that, and I've never threatened my dog.
it seems like a very like extreme thing to do, right? So I don't know, maybe it's just like a movie thing just for drama. But anyways, this clown has this really crappy truck, and he's leaving like this party, and the dog is in a crate in the bed of the truck, and he's driving, and it slows out, or it slides out, and so it's just in the middle of like highway, and the family hits the crate, so it's just in the middle of the road, and the family who actually adopts him actually hits the crate. Like barely. They like break and they hit it, and then it like opens up and the dog comes out. And another like kind of like kids movie thing where it's like kids see things that parents don't, where the kid sees the dog. So they hit the crate, the gate opens for the crate. The mom who's driving didn't see the dog, but the kid sees the dog in a clown costume, and he's kind of like amazed. And the kid's probably what, like 10 or something like that. And so in terms of the movie, the kid is really depressed because his dad passed away and he moved, and he's just kind of, and he loves basketball, and he's just kind of like walking home from school, and he finds like an abandoned church, and I don't know why he goes there, but then he finds a basketball court that like on the cement there as part of the church. And so he's just shooting the ball, and he misses, and the ball rolls into like overgrown bushes, and then just like a few seconds later, the ball rolls back towards him, and he starts investigating it, and he finds like a piece of cloth from the dog's clown costume. So then he brings that home. He goes back again later after going to school or whatever, and he sees paw prints and hears barking, and then sees the dog. And the dog's kind of scared of him. But he gives the dog pudding and cleans the basketball court. The dog eats the pudding, and all that. And basically, like, there's just kind of like a growing like connection like between the kid and the dog trusting each other. And like the kid gives him pudding, and then he eats it, and then he brings more pudding, and there's just kind of like that early kind of bonding where it's like they don't really know how to react to each other, and then eventually the dog's like gets along with him, and then there's a montage of them playing. The dog lets him pet him, and then so the dog lets him pet him, and so like I feel like that's like a big trust thing. Like, have you ever seen like any dog, and I don't know, dogs like you, so you might not have the best answer, but like you go up to them and they're kind of like suspicious of you?
Yeah, that's happened.
And then they're kind of wary of you petting them. And so they got to the point where it's like, oh cool, like we're good, we're down to like I trust you. I don't see my notes exactly where, but there's at some point the dog Airbud,
his name is Buddy.
Yeah, but I know. But in my head, he's always been called Airbud.
No, yeah.
So I gotta translate that in my head. So Buddy,
no, you can call him Airbud.
He basically does the thing where he hits it, right? He basically tries to bite it, and it bounces off his mouth into the hoop. I forget at what point that happens. But anyway, so this kid kind of is like secretly playing with this dog, and then like he's really depressed at first. Like he's in this new area, like his dad passed away, his mom is busy working, and he's just super depressed. And then he gets this dog, and it's a complete 180. Like he comes home like, "Hey mom, you need help with groceries?" and all this kind of stuff. Like, and she's like, "What?" Um, but I think that's just like one of the real positive things about dogs is that this movie did a good job of just like showing like a like complete attitude uh, shift where it's like, oh, like this thing's awesome, and it's like we have this awesome relationship, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like I don't know if you see this, like, but I see this all the time, like on Twitter and stuff, and like people who I know don't have dogs, they see it, they post a picture of a dog they saw at, like a coffee shop or whatever, and they're like, oh, this dog's the best and all that. And it's like dogs have this like ability to like lift our spirits up, and so I want to say it's great that this happened, but it's like it's just a movie. But it was they did a good job of showing that. Josh, the kid, sneaks Buddy home, and he gives him food and a bath, and then there's a montage of that, you know, all sorts of goofs that happen, you know, like the dog shakes off, whatever. And then the mom gets home and sees the dog, and she's like, no, we can't keep the dog. Or no, sorry, let me take few steps back. So she sees that he brought home this dog, and her first impression is like the dog. I forget how, but like somehow so the kid is pretending that the dog is not there when he's like wanting to help with the groceries and all of that, and then somehow like the basketball gets bounced down the stairs, and then the dog comes running down the stairs, and then it goes into like whatever, like the living room where they're painting. So there's like all sorts of like ladders and buckets of paint set up, and the dog, you know, it has like your ridiculous scene where the dog flips something up, and you know, paint gets everywhere, and he makes a mess. He gets paint on him after Josh gave him a bath, and then he shakes it off and paints get everywhere. And then his mom's like, you know, we can't keep this dog. And then he's begging and pleading for it. And then I think she says like, we'll give like 2 weeks and we'll put up like lost signs and all of that. But so like a note I made is like first impressions of dogs are critical. So like the kid had like a good first impression, but the mom had a bad first impression where it's like, you know, she's trying to figure her whole life together, and here's this dog making a huge mess. So what do you think about like? I mean, we've always had good impressions with our dogs that we've owned, right?
Yeah.
Especially Mikey. You know, we talked about in the episode we recorded about him. But basically, we were in a room, like a greeting room, and we had like a ball, and everyone was just throwing it around the room, and he like was going with that. What was your first impression of Dewey? Because you weren't there when we got him.
Yeah, my first impression of Dewey, well, every time I tried like getting close to him, Mikey would get, you know, defensive, and like, so for a while I couldn't really like, you know, hang out with Dewey. But I mean, like, I wanted to like him, and you know, I did. I don't know. I guess he was fine.
Yeah. So like like I said, like the first impression is like really critical. I think especially to when for them, like we're adopting a dog. They're just meeting this dog, and so like his first impression, he just sees it and he wants to play basketball or whatever. The mom sees it. Clearly the kid likes the dog. He wants to keep this dog. He just made a huge mess in my house. I don't want this dog. And so she says don't get attached, calls him a stray, and threatens taking him to the pound again. So another like cool thing that this movie showed. So Buddy sleeps inside the house, and then he jumps out of the second story window. Do you remember this?
Well, can you?
Yeah. So, prompting you. So so basically, like, the kid's room is on the second story, and so, like, right outside his window, there's like the roof. There's like a roof of the first floor, and so the dog like jumps on the desk or whatever out the window, and then walks along the roof, and then he jumps down like on a fence onto a car and then off, like onto the ground. And and then he does the opposite too, where he climbs up the lattice. I don't know. Do you think that was like real or like an effect, like a special effect?
I mean, it probably was a special effect. I don't know, because that seemed like advanced for that time. I mean, Dewey can climb.
Yeah, so Dewey climbed like a cyclone fence, so I feel like he could. And like, we got to remember that like this dog, this is like any dog that like anyone I'm probably gonna talk to ever on this show is not gonna be like specially trained as like this kind of dog, or a dog like Buddy, who's his real name if I didn't mention that, but so he climbs up the lattice. Sorry, I reversed it, but they do show both. But he climbs up the lattice, jumps on the car, climbs up the lattice, and then walks along the roof and then into the house. And he does that at night because, oh yeah, sorry, I totally forgot. He built like a cardboard dog house. And I don't know, I think on the episode I did with my friend Daniel from college, he had a doghouse, but I don't think I know anyone else who ever had a doghouse for the dogs. Like, I don't know, maybe that's just like kind of like a more cultural thing here, but like most people have like indoor dogs. So I feel like that's also like kind of like a movie and TV kind of thing, like dogs in the doghouse, right? Like not as like a negative thing, but that's just like they live in the doghouse. Like, not that like, oh, they just have a mat inside the house. And then the dog hides under the clothes. It was like super cheesy, where it's like the kid's like on his bed, and then Buddy's like under the clothes, and you see like this big pile of clothes moving, and the mom doesn't notice. Thought that was a goof. But moving along, it's like Christmas. So I said like they give him like 2 weeks or whatever. So it took place like just a couple weeks before Christmas, and then he comes down for Christmas, and the mom gives him the dog for Christmas. And I feel like that's again like another like kind of like movie TV kind of thing, but like I feel like that doesn't really happen in real life, or that's something you always see that doesn't really happen in real life, but it's something that could, and I think people would want that, other than like the weird logistics of like how do you get this dog like right before Christmas. But I don't know, what do you think of like getting a dog for like a gift?
I mean, people. I mean, I mean,
like the idea of it. Like, is that like, would you want that? Like,
I mean, unless it's like something I've talked about, to someone like extensively, probably not.
Oh,
it's a lot of commitment.
Yeah. Okay. So you're saying like out of the blue, it's like kind of weird, or not weird, but like burdensome.
Yeah. I mean,
but
like if it was like,
but if you just like, whatever, we're living together and we're always talking about getting a dog, but we never did for whatever reason, and then surprise, here's one.
Mm-hmm.
Then that's a good circumstance.
Yeah, it'd be fine.
So I mean, and so in this case, it is a good circumstance, right? Because
the
dog was living there, and the mom realized that like, oh, this dog is special to the kid. Okay, so by the way, I do have like 2 pages of notes. Probably a little overboard. I misspoke earlier. So the kid is frustrated with the basketball team, and for some reason he's at the abandoned church just shooting hoops, and he throws the ball to Buddy, and then he knocks it in, and then it has like a montage of that. And so that's like where he realizes like, whoa, this dog is like awesome. Later on, the kid, so I think, so he's not a part of the team. He's actually like the manager, because you really need a manager on a like middle school basketball team. But so I guess the idea is that he comes home, he goes to practice or whatever, and then the game. So he doesn't come home till like, it's like nighttime. And so the dog, leaves the house and goes to school while he's at a basketball game, and the dog finds him. I think, okay, I could be mixing some facts up that are semi-important to the movie but aren't really relevant here. But basically the dog sees the kid dribbling, and he runs onto the court, and then there's like a goofy montage of like, like everyone's trying to catch the dog and all that kind of those goofy hijinks. And during this whole montage, somehow he hits the ball into he makes a shot, and everyone goes like ballistic. And then so this kid, like, he's like new kid, like the players on the team don't really like respect him that well. But after the game, he's with his mom and the dog, and his teacher comes up to him and introduces all these kids to him because they want to see the dog. And then they're just talking, and then the dog just like runs away, like runs off, and he goes to the court and he kind of jumps up like the doors, and he's like peeking through the window, and the coach is like throwing basketballs at a kid. Do you remember that?
No.
And because like the kid had like made a turnover, like he didn't catch a pass or whatever, and the coach is like, "You'll catch the ball this time," and the kid has like a bloody nose and stuff. I thought that was like really weird. Like, I don't know if I want to say out of place, but it just felt odd in the movie. But it's like, I guess it's a good moment for Buddy, because it's like, oh, he can do everything. Like, he's so observant and so well behaved. Oh, yeah, observant. After that, they decide the teacher talks to the kid and his mom because they want to use the dog at halftime for the games to raise money for the school. And so they bring the dog and Josh, I keep saying the kid, Josh, out to the court to make a hoop, or whatever, to get people
A basket.
make a basket, yeah. And the kid tries to do it, but Airboat's like Buddy is kind of nervous. I couldn't really remember why. I mean, it didn't really make sense to me why the dog would be nervous. I guess because there's a lot of people, but I don't know. I guess any dog would get nervous in front of a lot of people, so I guess it makes kind of sense. But I think rewatching you'd like, oh, he just makes all the shots. The next point that I have is like, while the dog jumps out the window, he steals the newspaper every day. And his mom's like there's like a scene where the mom's like calling the newspaper or whatever, and he takes the newspaper and buries them. And what I forgot to mention was that this clown always threatened to hit him with the newspaper. So to him, like, this newspaper is like a negative thing, so he's just burying them in the backyard. Another weird thing is going forward. Jumping forward into the movie, they have like a shot where it's like top down, and all the team members put their hands in, and then the dog puts his paw in. I thought that was like really lame, and probably fake, but I thought it was lame, but it got a laugh out of me. So as we're progressing through the movie, there's like a local news story about the dog. He's raising money for the halftime for the school, and it has a scene where the clown sees the dog on TV, and he's like, "Whoa, that's my dog!" Because he knew what the dog could do. But prior to that, like, you hadn't seen him at all. Like, there's no part where he made an effort to try to get the dog.
Mm-hmm.
So clearly, he didn't really care about the dog. The dog was just part of his act. And that's a key point that we'll touch on as we get into it. But eventually the clown shows up at the kid's house, and the dog doesn't want to go with him. Like, he's like talking to his mom and saying like, "Hey, this is my kid."
Dog.
Yes. Sorry. The clown gets the dog because he says, "I've got papers." You know, saying like, "This is actually my dog," even though like the dog doesn't want to go with him. And so the kid, there's a scene where the kid is leaving all these pudding for the dog on the court where he met him, and it's still there. Where he met him, he puts a bunch of pudding. Then he goes to check back, and it was still there. So it's like, oh man, he didn't come back. So then there's a scene where the clown is talking on the phone about doing commercials and stuff with the dog. And, you know, he's like, "Oh, beer commercial," and all this kind of stuff. So that's why, like, the dog, or the clown saw the dog as a means for money. Where, like, he used it as a part of the prop for his birthday party, wedding, whatever thing. And he didn't care about the dog. But now that people like love this dog and see this ability, he's like trying to cash in on it. So he's like negotiating on the phone, like, "Well, he doesn't really do beer commercials," and then like he's like, "Oh, well, for that price, he'll do it." Now I don't remember how, but the kid finds the clown's house and finds him chained up, and then he steals the dog. So he steals the dog back from the clown, and he like undoes the chain, and then the clown's like fighting him for it, and then the clown chases him in his like crappy pickup truck, and eventually like there's a whole scene of them like running around, and the truck gets destroyed and like driven into like a river. But the Buddy, like, was happy when he saw him, and obviously the kid wanted the dog. So I mean, I don't know. What do you think about that? Just like stealing the dog back.
I mean, in a fictional world, it's fine. Go ahead.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, in real life, you know, it's not always as, you know, you can't always do that.
Do you think how like whatever, it's like a movie, but how often do you think like in real life like someone would like steal someone else's dog? Like,
I've heard stories of it.
Like, but do they know the dog, or do they just steal the dog? Because I knew someone who had their dog stolen, but they probably like sold it or something like that. But like, do you know what I mean? Like when there's like a established relationship, like if one of your friends had a dog and they didn't have the best relationship, the owner and the dog, but then they had a good relationship with you, like you stealing the dog, like, you know what I mean? Where it's like the dog would want to go with you. Like, that's really weird. I mean, I'm sure on like Judge Judy or People's Court, there's probably like stories of that, like, which we'll get into later. But I don't know, like, obviously, yeah, it's just a fictional thing, but I found it, like, I thought of that as like an interesting thing. Then I can't remember exactly how, but it gets to a point where I think it's right after he steals him back, is the kid's like, this clown, he doesn't verbatim say this, but basically he says like, this clown is not good for you, like he's not a good owner for you, so I'm gonna set you free. So he he hires his water taxi to go to this island. Now, they live near. I think they live near Seattle, so maybe there's a bunch of like small islands where it's like you need a boat to get there, but like distance wise, it could just be like a few hundred feet or something like that. Like not like miles away. But basically, from what it looks like in the movie, he brings him to this island, and then he sets him free. Because he knows the clown is just gonna get him back.
Yeah.
And so he's like kind of like, it's actually like a pretty like emotional point where he's kind of like yelling at that buddy like, go, like get out of here, shoo, all that kind of stuff. And it's not until he throw, and that's not working. He takes his basketball and throws it as far as he can, and then Buddy starts chasing after it. Then he runs the other way onto the water taxi to like leave. And then the dog realizes it, and then he starts running to him. But it's like too late, and so it's like, yeah, it's really sad. Like, you know, like this dog meant so much to this kid, and he can't keep him, and so he's like, I'm gonna do the best thing for you. But it was actually like, I don't know, kind of hard to watch to see this like kid like have to get rid of this dog. So moving forward again, it cuts to a basketball game, and the team is behind, and the team has some injuries or whatever. I think this is the like state final game or something like that. But the team gets down to 4 players, and so in basketball you have 5 players. And so they have a new coach who's really good, who Josh really likes, and in the nick of time, Buddy comes running onto the court, and then there's some discussion like, hey, can he play? Obviously they know he can shoot, and Josh's team's like, yeah, we'll have him on, and then the other team's like, no way, he can't play. And then Josh's coach is like, he plays with the team, he travels with the team, he's a member of this team. And then I thought it was really funny. So the ref is checking the rule book, and I wrote down a quote, and it says, "Ain't no rule saying a dog can't play basketball." I mean, do you disagree?
I mean, if it doesn't explicitly say no dogs.
And then I wrote down the quote that Josh's coach says, "Afraid your team might get beat by a dog." And then they're like, "Fine, we'll let him play." And so the first play of the game of Buddy in, he gets a steal. And you know, like I like basketball. I watch basketball, and I was before watching it, I was curious of how the actual playing would be. And they're young enough where the dog's like the perfect height where he could just get steals like all day. So he just constantly gets steals. Like I knew he could score, but I didn't remember his defense. And so he gets a steal the first play, and of course the team is down because they had all these injuries, and so there's a montage of them coming back, and then there's like a jump ball jump ball is like when player from each team is like fighting for possession of the ball, and there's a jump ball where the ref gets the ball and it's all slobbery. So I thought that was a funny gag. And so the team is coming back, and the opposing coach says, "Will somebody cover the dog?" And I thought that was really funny, because it's like, you think like, how hard is guarding a dog? And the other thing is, Buddy basically doesn't miss any shots, but he needs to be like really set up to score. So it's like, in theory, I mean, you watch a lot of basketball, it shouldn't be hard to cover him, right? Because it's like, you have to oop it to him. And of course, like every episode, Dewey is barking. This montage is coming, and the team is coming back. There's a kid who does like a hard foul to the dog. And I thought that was like, I don't know, really messed up, right? Like, I don't know. It was weird. Like, I understand, like, the dramatic moment of the movie, but, like, I guess the idea of someone being teetering on the edge of abusive just for, like, a game was, like, kind of, like, a hard thing for me to watch. Like, a hard moment. Like, I know that the kid is, like, playing, like, a antagonist role, but that was kind of hard to watch. And so the kid, or the dog, Buddy, sorry, I keep saying dog. Buddy gets free throws, and, like, I was like, how does this work? The ref tosses it to the dog, and I was thinking, like, is that, like,
Well, the ref tossed.
fair? But the ref does pass it to you, so it's basically the equivalent of that, right? So you think that in the hypothetical where a dog could be on a basketball team, that doesn't fall on the side of being unfair?
Yeah, that's fine.
So there's also just, like, the theme of doing what you love or something, like, something along those lines, like the kid, like, doing it because you love it and not because, like, you want the attention. Like, I'm kind of not doing the best job of explaining it, but, like, earlier the kid chucks up a final shot and he misses it, and basically, like, his coach was kind of like a message of having confidence and wanting to win because you love the game and not because you want to win for kind of, like, the glory of it. So he makes the final shot of the game, and they win, shows up at the school, and demands his dog back.
The clown.
Yeah, the clown demands Buddy back. Oh, yeah, also, I forgot to mention, when he confronted the mom at their house, there's, like, a shot of him looking, like, because he didn't even have a name for the dog, because he's kind of, like, looking around, and he's like, old, and then he sees, like, some paint or whatever, and like, blue paint, and he's like, oh yeah, Old Blue. So that's, like, another instance where it's like he didn't really care about the dog. So he brings Josh to court and claims that he missed the dog and all this kind of stuff, but his, like, papers got destroyed, and he has, like, a Ziploc bag with, like, all this, like, destroyed paper in it. The kid is saying, oh, I love the dog, or whatever, and all this whatever generic kind of stuff you would suspect. And then Josh's coach comes in. He says he's part of the family, the team, the town. The coach then suggests that the dog chooses who gets him. So before we get into that, what do you think about that, of deciding?
I mean, it's dogs, like, I don't know, like, Dewey just came up to me versus you. I don't think it means he loves me more than he loves you. But he came up to me. So, I don't think it's necessarily a reliable terms of, you know, like, judging. But, you know, in a movie, you know, well, sure, why not?
But so they were, like, the dog was in the middle, and then they were probably, like, good 20 feet apart on either side. And then the judge rules, okay. The judge says, okay, choose. And so, you know, they're saying, you know, the kid's saying, here, buddy, come on. And then it cuts over the clown. He's like, come on, Old Blue. Like, that's not even his name. And then he has a newspaper in his hand, and he's kind of, you know, beating it, like, I know that's more of like a clapping sound, but hitting it against his hand. And so the dog is, like, torn which way to go, and he goes to the clown, takes the newspaper, rips it, and then runs over to the kid, and everyone's like, yay! Then it's like a happy ending, right? I feel like using a newspaper hit a dog is, like, a long running, like, symbol of, like, kind of like obedience. Just a side note, like, it's kind of funny looking back on it now, just in the sense, like, the amount of people who use newspapers, who have a newspaper in 2019 versus 1997 is a lot different.
Now they use tablets.
Oh, now they use the iPad to smack the dog. So that, I thought that was a little just, like, interesting, like, timely thing. Just like that symbol of, like, I guess the newspaper for the dog was just a symbol of bad things happening, like bad memories, like dealing with this clown. And so he rips it up, and then he's free. Then it's a happy ending and all of that. So overall, I guess just as like I found it enjoyable, like watching this movie again. You know, it's like a kid/family movie, so it's easy to watch, but just like kind of like approaching it as like focusing on like the dog and what the dog does. Like the dog does lift up like this community, and obviously that's like a little that's an exaggeration of what most dogs do, but they do lift up people and families, and so I think it did a good job of that. So I appreciated that. Do you have like any other things that you recall from the movie? Thoughts about like the movie overall?
I mean, I remember just enjoying the movie. I mean, like it was like it's definitely like a family kids movie, but it's it's enjoyable for what it is. I mean, yeah, I don't know. You basically covered everything.
Yeah, well, I hope I did a pretty thorough dive into it, but it did a good job of saying like, hey, dogs can do amazing things, and dogs can make us happy and positively contribute to our lives and family, and that's why people want dogs, and people love dogs. So that wraps up this episode of the Good Boy Podcast. Thanks for hopping on the mic with me. I hope people found this enjoyable. Maybe you want to go watch Air Bud. Maybe just was a nice stroll down memory lane. But depending on how I feel about this, I might record one about the sequel, Golden Retriever. So if you do like this, let me know. You can always leave a rating on iTunes or wherever you view it. That's always positive. You can tweet at the Good Boy Pod. I run that Twitter account. It's mostly just updates about the show, so don't worry about like a bombardment of information. Yeah, rate it wherever you can and tell people about it. Tell your friends, family, coworkers, neighbors, whoever, to check out the show. It's a fun, positive time. So thank you for listening, and keep petting those dogs.